Welcome, everybody, to DAT Poker Podcast, or as we're calling it now, the Game of Gold Podcast, because we do recaps of the new reality show, The Game of Gold, brought to you by GG Poker, and free to watch on the GG Poker YouTube channel. Head on over to YouTube, fire it up, watch them in sequence. We did a show after episode 1. We recapped it, talked about a bunch of the hands, talked about the setup, talked in general about the game, and this is going to be all about episode 2. So if you haven't watched episode 2, do not watch this podcast because it is going to spoil the shit out of your experience. Stop, hit pause, go over to the YouTube channel at GG Poker and watch episode 2 of the Game of Gold, and then come on back because we're going to break it down. We might have a special guest later. Who knows? We're going to have some fun and talk all about the Game of Gold episode 2. So that's what's going to happen today. I'll quickly introduce everybody. Terrence Chan, Roscoe, and of course Daniel in Las Vegas. Let's get right to it, boys. We left episode 1. Remember, we talked about episode 1. We got to the end and it was a cliffhanger. Like every good reality TV show, you need a cliffhanger, and we got one because Olga shoved or raised with ace king, and Kaina, England, moved all in with ace 8. I think she had 8 big blinds. Fairly standard, runs into ace king. Interesting part is the small blind snap folds ace queen, but she's trying to ladder up. Of course, Olga calls off, and we get the cliffhanger at the end of episode 1 before the flop rolls off. Kaina's going to need an 8 or some sort of hand to beat ace king with her ace 8. She does not get that, so she busts and she goes home in 4th place. And we're not going to talk about too much about what happened in the first. We're going to move on. So that happened, and then
in the first one, Olga crushed their souls.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Actually, that's a good point because Olga she had big stack strategy. She came in, she's open shoving, putting pressure on everybody, trying to ladder up, and she probably saw that the woman to her right was trying to ladder up, so she knew. But it was just, it's GTO. She's just going to shove, and she moved in. Dana, you called it. You guys were talking about it all throughout all the different team rooms. They were talking about, oh my God, Olga.
Yeah, there was one fold where she's obviously shoving pretty much any 2, and our boy Soiza had ace 8 off in the small blind. But because of the unique situation with the points and the gold coins, and you've got a team behind you, right? So you can't just be YOLO, screw ICM. It matters. So he's folding the ace 8 there against 2 random cards, which obviously if you're just playing for EV, you would play the ace 8. But, everybody was cognizant of that. But good on Olga for recognizing the situation she was in. And here's the deal. When you watch this show, guys, you don't see all the hands. You see a lot of them. In fact, one of the big ones that I expected to be in the show, it was a fight between me and Jason Kuhn, but it didn't air because it was a whatever hand, but we go at it. I almost beat the shit out of Jason Kuhn. No, I'm
not sure that's happening.
But we did I'll give you the brief. We basically Kevin Martin made a C bet on a flop and he bet 40% pot. And it's and Jason goes, oh, that's a mistake. Should be quarter. I was it's not a mistake. I mean, especially with the dynamic, whatever. He's no, that's 100% mistake. And I was I'll bet you $500,000 it's not a mistake. We got into it a little bit, but it was fun. They didn't air that because what they do is obviously it's a four-person sit and go. This show is going to extend into much more things. So you're not going to, some of the good stuff, behind the scenes stuff will end up on the cutting room floor, but you'll see a lot of the key hands, and I love the way that they dramatize each one.
There should almost be, after the whole show series is done, an outtakes. Throw up, maybe talk to the guys about putting that up, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot more outtakes coming up that people might find interesting that you can't shoehorn into an hour-long show. An hour isn't a ton of time. So, like you said, some interesting stuff will be left on the floor, in the editing floor. So, to summarize, Olga picks up 30 coins for the team. Nikita, the woman to her right, was trying to ladder up. She used a gold coin, which I missed, actually. She used it as a time extension. Interesting twist to the what coins are valuable. These are the things that your team...
That was when she folded ace queen suited in episode 1. Yeah. That was the big tank when she folded ace queen suited, and everybody was just absolutely shocked. So she used a coin when she's tanking in a spot where kind of everybody thought it was a snap call.
What I think is interesting, and I know that I faced this in a later match, is we don't know really how important that one coin is going to be. Right?
Exactly. That's
like,
what I'm
if
saying.
you know going forward, it's like, it's not that big a deal. You'll have one of like 1,000 coins. Who cares? But like, I'm thinking, shit, I don't want to use a coin because like, that's my coin. That's what I'm playing for. Right. But, she definitely used one. And as you see in the standings, it comes right out of the game. And, she wins 19 coins instead of 20, as you said.
Yeah, great twist. I really liked it, and I immediately thought, "Oh my God, what if they go home by one coin?" Because she needed that day. That's great little.
My prediction is very few coins get used for the remainder of this first round. I think I would actually bet the line. I would bet like under 1.5 coins used for the remainder of round one. Now we've seen 2 of the matches, but I would take I think so Daniel's heat with a third heat and the fourth heat. I bet all these guys use 0 coins. That's my prediction.
Yeah, probably because the guys, as we get later in, theoretically they're worth more, these matches. Well, we know match 3 is worth more. We're not sure about match 4, but these we've backloaded the talent, maybe the quote unquote poker talent, to the later ones, so they're going to know maybe she was a little bit inexperienced and needed to use it in that spot that some of the later guys won't need that. So Nikita, she used a coin, picks up 19
I will
coins.
say this, just so you know, like the way that I think about it is, when her using a coin, I feel like that's really taking one for the team, because that's your coin. Like, this is an individual game in the end. You must win. So you burned your own coin, and you did so on behalf of the rest of the team. Obviously, you did it for yourself as well, because you're a part of this team and you hope to advance. But like, long term, she chose to use that coin. It's going to cost her only, in terms of like post this round.
Yeah. So again, the team with the least coins in the first set of 4 sit and goes home. Olga in the very first sit and go picks up 30 coins. Nikita picks up 19. Michael Soiza, Daniel, on your team picks up 13 coins. And Kinda England picks up 6 coins for last place for going home, the first one to go home, the first one to bust out. We move on to the second heat that now includes a shirtly Charlie Carroll, who is distracting. Yeah. That was a great line. Now you see what the gamesmanship is here. High stakes crusher Andy Stacks, old man Josh Arieh, and we might hear from him later in the show. We might not. We'll see if we can track him down. And reality TV poker streamer extraordinaire Kevin Martin make up round 2 of the first set of matches. All right, so let's move on to the first big hand. The only one thing, Daniel, the super small nitpick I have here, it'd be nice, and I know because I'm, a poker guy rather than a casual player, but having hand numbers might have been interesting because we don't know how deep it is. The blinds, maybe. Yeah,
I wonder about that. I think a little bit of it is like, you sort of want to create the illusion that it's an ever-flowing show. You're thinking about 2 things. Like you said, you're a poker guy, right? So you want to know exactly. But like, your casual audience viewer, this almost, like, they might not even know there's other hands. Like, remember when poker first aired on ESPN and people were like, man, they just always get way better cards than I do, right? Because people didn't realize, they're just cutting out only the best stuff. So there's like, the give and take there. So that's why I kind of like the approach they took to sort of create the illusion that it's just one flowing thing.
Yeah, and overall, so it's interesting because this was a very poker heavy show, and that's the thing that probably surprised me the most about this hour is that it was essentially only poker being played. The first episode, we got all the introductions and all this stuff. This was very poker heavy. I kind of had this feeling that between match 1, I didn't expect them to just go like match 1, bang, 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 like quick exit interviews, and then right into match 2. Thought there'd be some sort of interlude or some sort of plot twist, or they were going to make everybody do 100 chin-ups to see which team did it faster, which I guess Kuhn probably would have done by himself. I was just surprised. Like, we're going straight into poker and just more poker. The first episode really felt like the audience that Daniel's talking about, like these guys that are a bit more casual. This one was just like, was very much for the fans, as it were.
Yeah. On that note, though, I want to say. Yeah. On that note, I want to say one of the things I love most about it, it's not formulaic. You watch a typical show, it's like, this is the beginning, this is what happens in the middle, this is what happens at the end, right? Like when you watch a poker broadcast, it's like, okay, 6 people ends up with 1. This started with the intro, with like breaking up the tables, played a little bit of poker. Second one, a lot of poker. Then there will be stuff that continues to change. So every episode doesn't look exactly the same. Like we left episode 2 in a mini, not really even a cliffhanger, right? It was like, a play to hand of the third heat, and then we're going to move on and start that with a little bit of teaser for 4. So every episode, it's not going to look exactly the same. And I think that's a good thing.
Yeah. The first big hand we have in match 2 of round 1 is Charlie Carroll. He opens in 10,000, 20,000 blinds with a 20,000 big blind ante. Everybody has 2 million in chips. He opens under the gun with red 5s. Andy on the button makes it 110 with queens, red queens. And Charlie calls. And Charlie, you can tell, is experienced in this, and you can tell Andy maybe, again, Andy's a deep stack cash game player, 4-person sit and goes, maybe not his cup, maybe not in his wheelhouse, but he's obviously a very good poker player and very smart. So hopefully he will adapt and figure out his way. The flop is, Charlie calls. The flop is 7-6-4 with 2 hearts. So Charlie flops an open ender. And of course, Andy still has in position the red queens. Charlie leads for 30,000 into 250, I think. And Andy flat calls the 30,000. Quickly, and I know we got a lot to get to, but do we like the 30,000 lead here from Charlie?
Go ahead, Terrence.
No, I mean, so anytime I see a bet like this, I haven't studied the branch of the game tree that goes with min bet. I think of it as a check. Like, except that it operates in the real world. It's different, right? Like, so, like you said, 30 into 250, that's very close to a check because, Andy still has almost all the options he had before. He will never fold any 2 cards in the situation that he would have 3-bet with. So the action is actually just kind of open to him. So it's an interesting, I think, exploitive play by Charlie to throw out this, what looks like a blocking bet, knowing that it's often something that you get information out of. Like, does Andy now raise? Like, if Andy was originally, if Charlie had checked, what is it? Andy presumably bets, like, most of the time. It's hard because this is a flop that doesn't favor pre-flop 3-better, but you still got big overpair advantage, so presumably you're going to bet a lot. I thought it was really a tricky play by Charlie to exploitively lead out here, and it ends up paying off as we're going to see in the hand. But, I thought Andy should probably raise some amount. I mean, it doesn't get Charlie off the hand regardless, but that was in my head what I thought when I was watching it.
I'm glad you went first because I was interested to hear your take, and my take is a little different in terms of it being an exploitative play. It feels very, very much a thing what he did here because that board texture when he opens and then calls the 3-bet, the 3-better doesn't have pocket, flop sets here ever. Yeah. He can, right? He also has all the draws. He has the 7-8 suited, the 8-9. So he's got a whole bunch of stuff that hits here, right? So what often happens on these straight card textures is the pre-flop raiser often checks back on these boards a lot. They don't just auto bet ace king here, or sometimes they check back aces too as well. So Charlie has an opportunity now to take the lead on the hand, if you will. I agree with your premise in the idea that it's somewhat like a check, but it puts Andy in a brutal spot. What do you do here? The guy's bet 30,000, so he's saying, I have some of this, right? Now, if I'm Andy, do I want to raise and just have it stuffed in my face? Because if I get stuffed in my face, what am I up against? I'm up against draws. Well, ace 5 of hearts. I'm up against the pair and a flush draw, all this kind of stuff. So I have queens. Do I really want to get it in here with the queen? So it kind of freezes Andy a little bit and takes initiative. And it also gives Charlie a little bit of the advantage on a lot of straight card turns and some flush card turns because he can sort of represent a wider range of hands, things like that. So I really like this, on that board texture. Again, when you think about game theory, often what you look at is what flop does benefits this person more? And it depends on stack size. If you're 500 big blinds deep or something, right, then it's much better for the caller of the 3-bet. If you're 20 big blinds deep, well, it's much better for the raiser because it's not that deep. So I think he controls the hand, he controls the size of the pot out of position, and puts Andy in a brutal spot. What does he raise with here? Do you just raise queens? I guess you're supposed to some of the time, but it's kind of uncomfortable if you raise and get 3-bet on this flop. Are you just going with it on 7-6-4? 2 hearts, you're never going to be a big favorite. So I like the play a lot. I think it's actually, I haven't looked into this one specifically, but I would bet a lot of money that it's whether he studies GTO or not, that it's going to have some leads. And I think the hand that he has might be a good one to do it with.
All right. Again, 7-6-4, 2 hearts, pocket 5s against pocket queens. Charlie leads for 30. Andy calls. The turn is the 8 of hearts. So we now have 8-7-6-4, 3 hearts. Charlie makes a straight with his pocket 5s on the turn with a flush redraw there. And Charlie bets 130,000. About a third pot, I think. No, less than about a half. little less than half. And Andy flat calls the 130. So bigger bet here. Charlie bets 130. Andy calls. The river is the 5 of spades. So it's now 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 on board. 3 hearts. The pot is now 580K. And Charlie thinks, and he's obviously pretty sure that he's chopping, I think, the way the hands played out. And he tries to get him off that chop by betting full pot. And he bets 550 into 580. And Charlie now starts with some table talk, which is awesome. I think he says, I need to know if you're raising, which is a great sort of needle at Andy to kind of get him to talk and get a reaction from what he says. I need to know if we're raising. And Andy sort of instantly says, "Oh, I'm not raising. There's no, I'm definitely not raising," kind of thing. So it works. Charlie got some information. I think he says something like, "Oh, great. So we're either splitting or I win." Is basically what he said, which was great. Again, fantastic table talk here by Charlie. And Andy thinks. Of course, if he does call, he's getting a chop, but he decides to fold his hand. Now, I don't know about you guys. I'm trying to think of what nines he has, what nines Charlie has here for him to fold that hand.
Oh, no, that's the thing. He has a ton of 9X.
All the nines.
He has every nine.
I'm asking specifically what nines he has for him to. Is he got pocket nines? Like what are the
pocket
hand
nines? He has 10-9 suited. He has whatever.
He has
10-8, 10-9. Yeah, like
he has a 9 flush draw. He's got 8-9. He's got 9-9. He's got he's got plenty of nines that he can rep here. And I think the thing he's thinking is, Andy's not going to raise here, which I think for me, the most interesting aspect of this was what we do with the show is you go into the side rooms, right? And you hear Yo Viral and you hear Fedor arguing, and Fedor looks at these queens and says, I think he's going to raise. And of course, Yo Viral is like, no way, maximum call. If he raises here, I quit poker, right? So what I think is interesting, and I was curious your thoughts on this, because I sort of broke this one down because I was very, very interested. Why does Fedor, of all people, see a raise here? And I'll let you go first, Terrence, because I wrote down some notes on this one because I thought it was a really interesting hand to break down. So notice Yo Viral's not, forget raise, he's not doing that. But Fedor's mind, who's a much more aggressive thinker, he's thinking raise here. Well, I'm curious, what you think.
The only thing I can think of is that he's got a queen hearts. That can be the only thing, because I don't think he's. The thing is, even if you have a 9 here, I don't think this is not supposed to be a raise if you have a 9 for Andy. So it can only be the Queen of Hearts blocker. That's the only thing. Now, I would suspect, I don't know. Again, I don't study No Limit, but if you throw it in the software, I suspect the Queen of Hearts raises some percentage, but it's probably not a real high percentage. That's at least my guess here. And I don't know what the ideal blocker is. It's maybe ace of hearts with a 10 or something like that, if you've got that in your 3-betting range. But that's the only reason I could think of that you would raise with the queens there.
Here's what I think. Okay, there's a couple things. There's one key thing we talked about on the flop, which I sort of contradicted myself on, but I'll clarify because I got this wrong. I think what Fedor's thinking here is when Charlie flops flush draws here, he's probably not leading. He's check calling more. Now, that's not entirely true. There's going to be some. Now, what I think is most important is when he has the Queen of Hearts, right? What flushes are left that call a 3-bet out of position, right? And I figured them out. I was like, there's Ace Jack, Ace 10, Ace 9, Ace 6, Ace Deuce through 5 suited. A lot of those 4-bet pre, the suited wheel cards and whatnot. King Jack, King 10, King 9, 10 9, Jack 9. That's it. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 10 combos possible of a flush. So you block a heavy part of it, right? And then you ask yourself, would he size it this way? Wouldn't he size it bigger? If he actually had the flush or whatever the case may be. But I think from Andy's perspective, he has every flush. All these hands we just talked about, Andy has every one of those. He's going to 3-bet all those hands pretty much, right? And Andy's also going to 3-bet the Ace Deuce, Ace 3, Ace 4 suiteds that are hearts, right? So I think when he looks at the spot, he sees what are you trying to sell? That you just small bet the flop, lead turn, which you would with a flush draw, but you're because most people that flop a flush draw don't want to pay more. So when you bet 30, if Andy does raise, he's going to make it 180 or whatever. And now you're putting yourself in a brutal spot with flush draws, which maybe want to check call or check raise sometimes, whatever the case may be. So I think that's what Fedor was thinking, was that his line didn't smell of a flush ever. And Andy just has he can still have all those flushes. And when Andy calls flop and calls turn, what are his bluffs now? He doesn't have that many, right?
Yeah.
Because he called turn. So he's not going to raise with a 9, like you said. He's not going to do that. But he's essentially saying flush. He may be 9-10 too, possibly. That's a little bit on the thinner side, but that could be a thing, especially if it was like 9-10 off with a 10 of hearts, which again, he wouldn't 3-bet with. So that was interesting just to think about the mindset of like, yo, viral, no way. He was right because Andy did fold. But Fedor's mind, I think this is a lesson for you guys that are watching, is like, when you, like, I always learn from that. Like when I hear Fedor say that, because he was convinced, he's like, he's going to raise here. Because Fedor's like, I would, right? So that just teaches you, ways to think outside your comfort zone.
I was just going to say, like, I think Fedor has ace deuce hearts, ace three hearts, ace four. I don't know that Andy does. Like, that's the thing. And I think a lot of people aren't going to have that, especially in this team format. They're going to be playing a little on the conservative side. And I also think if they found themselves in the situation where there was a bluff, I think the massive all-in bluff is so much less likely to be executed in this team format. Like in a spot where it potentially just looks like a huge punt. I think that's so much less likely. So I actually think that Fedor will show up with the ace wheel suited cards that you're supposed to, 3-bet with pre-flop. I don't know that Andy.
Andy's always 3-betting ace 3 suited on the button forehanded.
Interesting. Okay.
I don't think he's not, not that early, right? Because you're not at an ICM stage yet. You're still, everybody's 100 big blinds deep, right? Now, if you're talking 30 bigs or 25, maybe it's a different story. But at 100 bigs playing four-handed, I think Andy's like auto 3-betting those hands personally. But I could be wrong. You could be right.
Daniel, do you play Andy's queens the same way?
I certainly go call flop, call turn. Rivers, like I think I would have called Charlie because I found that I thought his table talk was giving away weakness. Like the things that he was saying in his table talk to me sounded like a guy pretending like he's got a hand better than the board and like, oh, okay, we're good. You know what I mean? But it felt like he was like, I don't know. The table talk made it seem like to me that he was trying to pretend that he was stronger than he was. So
it's hard though because and you're there and it's hard to find the version of you that doesn't know.
Yeah,
to see you some of the same conclusion.
I think maybe that would be the only thing I do different. But again, who knows? In the moment, like you said, there's the added pressure of like, oh shit, I don't want to pay this guy off and then get short, and then my team's going to suffer as a result. So tough spot.
All right, the next hand we're going to talk about, the next big hand takes place also with Andy Stacks, and this time it's against Josh Arieh. And we're still at 10,000, 20,000 with a 20,000 big blind ante. Andy opens to 50,000 with the ace 4 off. He's under the gun. Josh on the button. 3-bets with the ace king of clubs to 100. Ace queen of clubs to 110,000. The flop is ace 9-4 rainbow spade club diamond. So Andy flops top and bottom, aces and fours. Josh, of course, flops the ace with the ace queen. Andy checks. Josh bets 50,000. And Andy check raises to 180,000. Interesting play here. Thoughts on check raising or versus just check calling here and waiting for the turn, Terrence? Why don't you go first?
I assume check raising here is very standard. I'd be surprised if anybody said it was wrong. Obviously, this is a pretty gross cooler for Josh. He can never fold here. It's funny. Jungle says you can never bluff.
I was going to get to that part. Yeah.
Yeah.
The most interesting thing about this is Jungle saying, at least he can get away now because I haven't seen anyone bluff this spot for 3 streets like ever.
There's an argument that is right because like the board is so devoid of draws, like ace 9-4 rainbow. It's hard to have a more a less drawy board. Like you're not going to be in there with the wheel draws, and which is relevant because the 2 wheel cards end up coming. But yeah, I mean, I thought this was fairly standard as from what I understand. And
remember what I was saying before,
Josh
like
has a clear call. What's that?
We learned from Fedor about like the aggressive sort of mindset. So like what you heard, like everything you do when you play poker, everything you do, you pay attention. When Jungle says that, right? This spot is very underbluffed, right? So like as a top player and everybody else listening, it's like, okay, well, this is a good spot for me to bluff Jungle next time, right? Yeah. So like if he believes that. So it's always interesting if people are so convinced that a spot is way underbluffed, maybe that's the spot to do it. So I thought that was interesting that Jungle was convinced. He's like, well, at least he can get away because, there's no way he's going to lose all his chips here with ace queen.
So if you've got the 3-5 against jungle on the spot, then bombs away.
Yeah.
Okay, so the turn comes the 5 of diamonds. Now this brings a backdoor diamond draw. Again, ace 9 4 5. Andy bets 230,000, and Josh thinks and calls. The river is the deuce of diamonds. So this brings the backdoor flush in. Neither have the ace of diamonds in their hand. Obviously, Josh has ace queen clubs. Andy does not have the ace of diamonds. And Andy goes small in this spot. He bets 330,000 into a pot of 1.1 million. Interesting spot, interesting bet. And rather than sort of us go back and forth about what Josh is thinking here, putting him in the blender, so to speak, why don't we see if Josh is available to talk about it and see if we can track him down, Ross.
What's up, boys?
Josh, how are you? Thanks for joining us. We're talking about this fun hand that came up in episode 2 of the Game of Gold that you were involved in, and we'll talk about what happened in your match in a minute. But this interesting hand that happened with the ace queen of clubs against Andy's ace 4, where he flops top and bottom. We've kind of got to the river here, where the run out is ace 9 4 5 deuce, bringing a backdoor diamond flush. Of course, you have the ace queen of clubs, so you've got top pair. Essentially a bluff catcher at this point. Andy has check raised you on the flop, bet into you on the turn, and small bet into you on the river. Maybe take us through a little bit of I know you're a mixed game guy. You've of course became famous by running deep in the main event way back when, but now you're a mixed game guy. I think you even said later that you might be a dog against some players.
We'll get to that. Ask him a damn question, buddy.
I'm setting it up, Daniel.
Give me a second. You don't think he remembers the hand?
I'm getting Josh to think about his answer. Okay, so Josh, run us through your thought process on some of those things.
Well, starting from the top, you don't really get an aspect. I'm like a big game flow guy, and just in the moment to understand what's going on. And what you don't get to see is that we've played for about an hour, and I think I had 3-bet him 3, maybe even 4 times. So he was, in my mind, he was like teetering on that, like, sick of this guy 3-betting me. And that's what brought my small 3-bet, because this was like the 4th time. And I think that, there's a chance that this guy could really go bonkers here pre-flop. I wanted him to be able to make a big enough 4-bet to where he would fold to a shove. But, at that point, when you get check raised in the flop, there's no draw. It is, like you guys said, it's ace 9 4 rainbow. What can his draw hands be? Can he be bluffing with the 7-8 of spades or something like that? So there's no value on, it's an obvious bet, him raise, and it's an obvious call on the flop. And then on the turn, it's just like in my head, I'm thinking that I'm just going to go with it and I'm just going to call him down. But then the board just continues to get worse and worse and worse. And it gets to where I can only beat ace 6, ace 7, ace 8, ace 10, ace jack. And it's like he doesn't have any of those hands. He's never check raising with those hands. And I don't know. I just thought that when it got to the river, I was pretty upset about folding because, a percentage of the time, ace queen is going to win there. But in the back of my mind, I start thinking about, okay, this is a turbo. The blinds are going to go up really fast. If you win 3 or 4 hands, you win the tournament. So just stay in and give yourself a chance to get lucky. And that's, that's all I was thinking at that point, because there's not much of a difference between a 3 million stack and a 1 million stack. You're only a 1-hand difference. And it was important for me to keep chips and go on to the next hand.
I think the surprising part for a lot of people is the size, right? There's 1.1 out there. He's only betting 330. So you heard the people in the back room talk about damn, that's it's hard. It feels like one of those spots where it's really kind of hard to fold for such a cheap price. But then if you are going to call, you have to ask yourself, what hand do I beat? Did any come through your mind that you thought maybe he has Like, you don't think you beat any value, do you? You don't think he's raising with ace-7 to just bet there? So,
No,
like,
and, I mean,
is there
even if he is, Dan, even if he is bluffing with like the 7-8 suited on the ace-4-9 flop, a third of the time he makes a backdoor flush. So like the backdoor flush came. So it's like there's another hand out of his range that I can't beat. So
you think you just count flushes though because of his size? Like when he goes smaller, right? Like you figure if he actually made a flush, that's going to be bigger, right? He's not going to go small.
Well, but the thing about it is it's pretty obvious. I have one pair with. I mean, my hand is basically face up. I have ace queen, ace jack, ace king, and it's like he could. I mean, that's a good bet at that point to make sure to get paid by one pair. And I just and you know, and another thing about it is like when I go back to saying that your chips that you are left with are so important because the blinds are getting so big. Like leaving that 330 that I saved, it's really 660 because I'm going to get into a spot where I'm going to be probably flipping later. And if I don't have that 330, that's 660 that's out of my stack.
I love Josh because he's an optimist. He's like, he thinks I'll be flipping, which means I win. Right. So 330 times 2 is 660 because it's a flip and I can't possibly lose.
Yeah, I don't lose many flips.
What's it like to run that good? I want to ask about your sizing. You touched on it briefly that you sized it small pre, so because you wanted this guy to come over the top. Now, when I was watching this and I was like, if I'm Andy, like, boy, it's gross. I got to put in more money with ace-4 offsuit to play out of position. Like I hate calling and no limit in spots like that. But what the downside of that is, you're going to get outflopped by some crappy hands. This is the exact downside. Do you have regrets about your sizing, or like if
not really?
If you were to tell other you to play this hand, like
like I said earlier, I mean, I had a plan. I really felt he was getting sick of me because it didn't show me 3-betting him either 3 or 4 times, and like David even mentioned it was like, wow, Josh really has a real hand now. But I truly. I got really comfortable and I don't know. Once in a while, I get into a zone where I know good shit's going to happen. I know that I just feel like I know I'm going to win. And it's just, I make things hard by doing stuff like that. But at the same time, I mean, if we turn the hands face up, wouldn't you want a guy with ace-4? And when I have ace-queen, I want him in the pot. But I mean,
I'm going to say something, Josh, here because your size, that's limit hold'em. And who's the world champion of limit hold'em?
That's right. I'm the world champion. You're just the online champion, Terrence. I'm the world champion.
So there you go. So like you're basically playing a limit hold'em hand, and you got ace.
Well, especially with the river bet, you're getting 5-1. I can't believe you folded.
Yeah, playing limit, I probably wouldn't have.
Yeah,
I love the size because you got ace-4 off to put in 5 big blinds with like out of position and just be like,
Yeah,
I love that.
I was just in a really good headspace at the time. It's just like I felt like I was really taking advantage of Andy, which is, in his defense, he is a deep stack player. And he was in an environment that he is not accustomed to. And I just think that with the things that happened leading up to this hand, I really felt he was going to 4-bet me and I was going to shove and I was going to win the hand. I really thought that was going to happen, but it didn't. And I'll take it. I mean, I was able to lay it down, and so if I was just a payoff artist, which I usually am, then probably like clicking at him with the ace queen may not be right. But I navigated my way through the hand, and I kept enough chips to get lucky later.
There you go. The only reason you're the world championship of limit hold'em is because my brother went and take a piss 3-handed. That's an amazing story, right?
That's the only reason. We'll tell that another time.
That is unbelievable.
Ace king and ace queen are the same hand here, Josh. You're gonna you folded ace queen. You're gonna fold ace king as well, essentially the same hand.
They're the same hand. I mean, my ace king and ace queen are. I mean, it's all the same. And I mean, I'm basically all I'm doing is bluff catching, and it doesn't make a difference.
While you're here, why don't we talk about another couple of hands
Sure.
to get your thoughts on, if that's okay? If you got a little bit of time for us, that'd be awesome. The first one comes at 80,000, 160,000. Again, with the 160,000 big blind ante. Blinds, and you're heads up with Charlie Carroll. You have 2 million. Charlie Carroll has 5.6 million. Charlie limps with Queen 10, and you check back the Jack 4 off. The flop comes Jack 3 rainbow. So apparently, once in a while, good things happen to you. It seems like here comes the Jack 3 rainbow, and you have the Jack 4 off. Charlie bets 160,000, and you check. Charlie bets 160, and you decide to check raise to 600,000 here. Thoughts on what you're doing here with the sizing and your check raise, maybe?
I'm when you flop a hand like that, I'm just in the back of my head. All I'm thinking is like, how do I get all my chips in? And lead isn't going to do it because I'm only going to get called by. I mean, it's like, so I wanted to polarize my hand. I don't know if that's the right term, but I wanted my hand to either be really good or really bad. And so when I check raised, he called, and I think a 2 came on the turn, and like the 2 can't do anything. And I thought that leading here does nothing. Like leading here lets him fold a 3, and so I checked it, and he quickly checked. And when the ace came on the river, I'm thinking in my head, like, what can he have, and what does he think my range is? So my range is like a jack or nothing, like 9-10 or something. And so he knows I don't have an ace, because I just don't think that you would check raise. I wouldn't check raise on the flop with ace high. I would just call and try to bluff catch.
I'm going to stop you there, because that was going to be my big question about this hand, because one of the cool things about the show is they cut away to the rooms, and you hear Maria say, Maria says, you don't have ace X in your check raising range, so you can't.
And then
bomb
somebody
here.
else says you do.
Nikita in the other range says, "Oh no, because he can have ace here." So I think it sounds like you're basically saying Maria was right in that case.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know if the answer. I don't know what the right answer is. I just know that in my style, if I have an ace there, I want to call and guess later. Call and see later, because I think that it's like a limit hold'em. I mean, it's like.
So how do you decide what you're going to bluff with on those flops? Like, I know, like GTO guys, how do you decide, like, on those flops what you're going to check raise bluff with? Because I know, like, GTO guys, they're going to come with specific hands and combos and different things. Like, but you're kind of more of like a feel in the moment player. So, like, because you're not always going to have a jack there, right? You're going to be bluffing.
Right,
like,
no.
What do those hands look like for you, or how do you decide when you're going to do that?
Well, I would wrap around the jack in some way to where I block certain jack holdings, but it's different in head up because, I mean, he's limping with jack 7 and jack 8, but in my mind there, I would check raise with the 9-10, with the 8-10, with the 10 queen, anything where I can lead, anything where I can go 3 streets, where I can go bet the turn and then bomb the river. And maybe I'll make a straight. But I just think that mixing the check in the turn in this exact situation, I thought it would confuse him a little bit and give me a chance to get paid off by a 3. And then in the back of my mind, I'm also hoping that he got cute with an ace on the, tried to limp on the button with some good ace hand. And so I didn't think that betting, somebody said something about how 10% is perfect. And it's funny how, dude, this is watching the show, and I love Fedor. I learned a lot from Fedor when we were doing the show, but he's playing in God mode. Like when he's giving all these hints, or when he's talking about what to do in a hand, he's literally doing what Antonio used to do when he was commentating for the World Series. Would play every hand perfect and say what you could do. And I know he's an amazing player, and he might just do everything perfect. I don't know. But I just didn't think that 10%, betting 10% on the river there was worth.
That was actually Robin Hood who suggested that.
Yeah, Robin and David said that.
They thought 10% would be good. And I actually disagree with them too, because I liked your play, because I think one of the hands that Charlie might bet there and then call with is ace high, right?
Yeah.
Like he called the check raise. Well, he doesn't have a jack. If he doesn't have a jack, so either he has a 3, some king high, queen high shit that's probably not calling anyway, or he has the ace. Now the question is, if you bomb that ace, is he ever going to fold? Were you thinking at all that, like, what were you targeting with that bet? Because you bet
I was targeting a big ace hand that limped on the button trying to get me to raise. That's just, I'm 90% sure that that's what I was thinking at the time. I mean, I try not to do the same thing all the time, and my no limit game isn't nearly as defined as people that have regularly studied. But in my mind, I just think that, okay, if he's got an ace, he's going to call me here. Maybe it's, but he wouldn't limp with ace 7, ace 8, ace 9. So like he
might limp trap those.
Yeah. Well, in my mind, I was thinking that, like, if he was trapping pre, it's ace 10, ace queen, ace king. And that's what me putting all the chips in on the river,
Speaking
that's
trap,
what that decision came from.
Trap, one last hand. This is the last one. Your final hand, right? Because it's interesting, because it seems like you just completely change your mind here. You limp off of 14 bigs with king 9 off, and then he jams. So you got 14 bigs. And then you allude to the idea, and this is sort of what Adam was touching on earlier, is like that you called because you felt like you were a dog. Like, explain that.
Yeah, well, my original thing was, because we were I think it was 16 blinds. And
14. Well, maybe it said you had 2.8 and the blind was 200. So,
okay. Well, what my initial thought was I'm going to limp. He's going to make it 3.5, 4x, and I'm going to shove and he's going to fold. That's my original thought. And look, in hindsight, it's not right, because he's probably not folding much. But when I limped and he shoved and beat me to it, I started thinking about, like, okay, now this guy is very confident. He's a no limit player. He's a head up player. He's fucking wearing a Jesus suit. So I just thought that I was happy with a flip. Like, if he's got 7s or 8s, that's what I was really thinking. And I just thought that was a good chance to go for it. And like I said earlier, I'm really not afraid of flips. I play them pretty good, but, I just, if it was a less skilled opponent, I probably would have folded and tried to maneuver and pick up chips here and there, but he's actually really good. And he does a lot of good shit, and he's a little intimidating. Like, I don't get intimidated much, but, like, he's the kind of guy that I don't have much of a rapport with. So it's like, I don't know. I don't do what I do very well against him. And I just thought that it was a good time to gamble. And as long as, when he's shoving 16 blinds, I'm pretty much, in my mind, and I could be wrong, I'm subtracting the very top of his range from what he can have. I really thought that he had like 6s, 7s, 8s, 9s, and something like that, or 6s, 7s, or 8s, and anything better than that, shove is bad. So I was like, screw it, man. If I get a chip lead against this guy, it's I'll really, have a good chance to win, because at that point we're almost at a shoving, in a shove fest. So, yeah.
Well, your thought process reminds me, like, a long time ago, you were around in 1999, I was heads up against John Bonetti in a spot just like that, where I check raised with a queen high flush drive, an overcard and flush draw, and John moved in. And I thought John was playing better than me, and I thought he was a favorite. So I said, listen, I got a clean queen, most likely, and I know a spade's good. So I can't be drawn dead. So I said, okay, this is going to be my shot to try to, get lucky. And back then I won all the flips too. So I won that one.
Yeah.
What's it like?
It's long. You don't have to be the best, and you don't have to, there's a million different strategies, and you can take a certain strategy and go in against anybody and you can force them to gamble. I mean, it's like if I play one of these big high rollers, I'm not going to go there and try to nibble away and chisel away at people. I mean, I'm going to get a flush draw and just make you put it in. And I'm going to raise the variance when I'm playing people that I believe are more skilled. And I'm not one to allow someone to chisel at me.
I love it because
I promise you the high rollers are going to welcome you because they love that idea. But on that note, speaking of like high rollers in Bahamas, you got PokerStake going on. What's the latest there?
Yeah, man. The Bahama World Series is coming up, and there's more and more people are putting up packages. Your package went up today, and it's just it's a great. I love playing World Series of Poker live, and this is the first World Series of Poker event that I've ever played outside of Vegas. I've always had a really hard time focusing in other tournaments that are not bracelet events. And so I'm really looking forward to that. And PokerStake, I'll sell pieces of myself there. And there's plenty of players that are way better than me that sell on PokerStake. And it's a good sweat. And I think there will be some live streams this year. But other than that, yeah, I just
head on over to PokerStake and check out all the different people that have packages up there. If you can't make it to the Bahamas, if you can't make it to a tournament series and you want to get your gamble on, you can go pick somebody to back. And that's the fun part about PokerStake. Josh, I just quickly want to ask you about your experience with the Game of Gold. This will be our opportunity to talk to you kind of about it, the format, how much fun it was for you and others, and the thoughts on your team. Obviously, you end up your King 9 holds here against 10 Jack suited, and you win the heat. Huge for your team because kind of England, who went first, was first out. And of course, as we know, the team with the least amount of coins is going to go home. So you really needed to clutch up. You said you were going to do that, and you did. But thoughts on the format?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a blast. I think it's we traveled a long way to get there, and I was very scared to be done the first day. It was, we traveled like 24 hours and just got there, and we basically just got thrown in the studio and find out that okay, after this round, one team's gone, and it was stressful, and it's even more stressful. As poker players, we are for ourselves. Like we have to answer to ourselves. But when I'm responsible for 3 other people that just went through the same travel that I did, and some of these people, winning the show is going to be huge for them. Whereas for me, it's not going to be much for me. Nobody wants a 50-year-old dude that's been around for 20 years and 30 years. But for them, these are some young guys that are coming up, and so winning for them, they need it, and they really, really, really want it. So I felt some pressure from that, but it was an amazing experience. I really can't. I don't want to talk about it too much because I might put a spoiler out there, but it was. I look forward to the next episode and how, if I'm on or whatever. And it's a really cool concept that I hope can even grow to even more viewer friendly.
So your win here puts Daniel's team kind of in a tough spot, right? At this point now, they're in last place after 2 matches. And you got to be looking at that team at this point. Your team has got to be looking at Daniel's team, Kuhn, and the depth that team has, and go, wow, we could sort of knock out one of the top.
Nice to get them out of there.
Yeah, they really blew it. I mean, look at all the talent. I feel like
the other rooms are rooting for us in any all-ins.
Yeah, I mean, look at all the talent on that team, and they just absolutely blew it. I mean, it's like a 14-point favorite going into the Super Bowl, and now their back's up against the wall, but but they have some really talented people. I mean, well, one, Jason, and still left to play. But no, I mean, I don't enjoy sitting across from Daniel, and it's it's cool getting to see Daniel's whole cards, but I don't know. We'll see what happens. There's a lot of pressure on those two guys to come clutch.
Thanks so much. Appreciate your time, Josh. Good luck. Well, it's over, but we're going to wish you good luck along the rest of the way here. And we will hope to talk to you soon. And good luck with PokerStake, and good luck in the Bahamas with the World Series of Poker. Appreciate your time.
All right, boys. Y'all have a good one.
Thank you, Josh.
So as we mentioned, Daniel, this does put you guys in a tough spot here. Josh taking this down, Kmart not having a great match, and we get a little bit of a teaser here. This is a fantastic set of teasers, and the show has really done this well so far with the first two. The third match is you, Maria Ho, Robin Poker, and Yo Viral. And I think there's somebody who says Negreanu's the best or something. So apparently you did something well, kind of a teaser there. But before, we'll talk about it next week after. Sorry, not next show, not next week, on Wednesday. But when you looked at we'll do one quick teaser here. When you look at Maria Robinson and Yo Viral as your opponents here, what were your first thoughts as you saw that?
Well, Lucas, Robin Poker, he's the one guy who, he's like a little bit of a fish out of water. He's an online guy, coming into a room with a guy who plays high stakes. He doesn't care about anything. He's Yo Viral. He's having fun. Maria's been around. She's a vet in this game. And then me, so it's intimidating for him. And I sort of thought maybe like he would be kind of a guy that I would try to like bother with some table talk and whatnot. Yeah. And like for me, the wild card for me, because I haven't played a ton with him, but I played a decent amount, is Yo Viral. Like I didn't know specifically like what are his strengths and weaknesses per se. I know that he's French, and every French player I've ever played with has creativity levels of like 180%. So, I went in with that thought process. But overall, I felt like, the pressure was this. Because with just me and Kuhn were really on it with like strategy. Because we're like, depending on how those first two guys, that's going to affect how we play, right? If they won their first two heats, I'm just an itty ladder guy, right? Because I don't care. I just need to finish third or second to just lock up getting to the next round, right? But now that we've come third and fourth in the first two heats, I got to post the top two.
And it's essentially a three-way tie for first, and then you guys, right? So
yeah, again, first is less relevant for us. Like, we're thinking survival. So now going in, there's a little more pressure for me. Like I can't come fourth. If I come fourth, like that puts, now Jason has to win to maybe get in, because we don't know, right? There's the mystery. We don't know how many coins are on the table. So if I come fourth, Jay, we might be out. Like it could be over. You know what I mean? So it's unlikely that's the case, but we don't know. So I felt a lot of pressure going in because the first two guys, it's kind of like if you play a scramble, right? And like you hit a tee shot and you got four people in a scramble and the first three guys hit it in the water, right? Like it would be nice. Couldn't it be nice to have just one guy hit it 200 up the middle?
One guy dry. One guy dry. That's it.
Now you take the driver out of the bag and you break out your 7-iron and hit it straight. You know what I mean? It's like, so I felt like a little more like I had to put the driver in the bag and maybe, play with the 7-iron a little bit. But we'll see. You guys will enjoy it Wednesday, like you said. I'm enjoying doing this with you guys. I think this is a really like cool innovation for poker going forward. And I hope that, more like we said, in the last clip, in the last show, hope that the rest of the poker world takes notice and goes, guys, this is how you do poker. So let's see more of it. I'd love to.
Can I just say the one thing that I expect that I did not have coming in was Maria Ho dropping way more F-bombs than Daniel at bad runouts. Like Daniel's like the notorious, the F-bomb dropping guy. Maria, just like every time she's just on the screen, like Daniel's like I got Tourette's, I can't help myself. Maria,
I saw so many comments in our feed or whatever of people saying it's great to see Maria be like a true sailor and let it fly rather than the goody two shoes, good girl we always see when she's doing commentary. You let the freak fly, let her be back there talking smack and throwing the F-bombs. I loved it.
Yeah, it was great.
People are really into it because it's you do have a rooting interest, and you might be like backing somebody, but you're usually not backing somebody with like a team in real poker. So now you have like you're like rooting like a fan. It's pretty neat. The other thing that was funny, I thought, was when Josh pulled up his mic and he's like, he knew that
everybody started talking.
Charlie was doing that.
Charlie was calling for cards.
Charlie was like, we need a 7. We need an 8. Josh is like, I told you I was going to win.
And Josh said, okay, who wants to interview me? I guess we should have brought that up because we wanted to interview.
Oh, yeah. You know what I wanted to ask George about is the edit from episode 1 saying I'm the champ, making him sound like the douchiest thing ever. But now you see with the further context, he was just having a laugh at himself.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to get to ask him that.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for getting together. That's awesome. We're going to do this again on Wednesday, and each and every day that GG Poker drops an episode. We're looking forward to that Monday, Wednesday, Friday this week. Thanks to you guys for tuning in and hearing us yammer on about it. But we'll see you very shortly and talk to you soon.